Hello, I am Richard Painting and I'm here to introduce you to a method for breaking through your organisation's performance barriers, many of which you may have come to accept as natural limits. This method or tool is called the Design Structure or Dependency Structure Method, which is generally abbreviated to simply DSM. I and many others believe it to be one of the most significant improvements in managing enterprise-wide that has occurred in the last 20 years. DSM's effectiveness comes from its ability to give us previously unobtainable insight into risk and problem structures, along with the adaptiveness required to minimize or eliminate their effects. We are all aware that managing the program, business and manufacturing activities that occur inside our organizations has progressively become more complex and difficult to deal with than they used to be. Business cycles have become shorter and the business environment much more competitive and complex than in the past. There is plenty of evidence that our tools are overwhelmed and losing their ability to manage the fast-moving and complex situations we have to deal with. Cost and time overruns are often in the 50 to 100% range, and we regularly are blindsided by issues that seem to come out of nowhere. Typically something has fallen through the cracks that retrospectively we realise we should have been on top of. To make matters worse, it is very difficult to respond to these daily crises rapidly without incurring significant unintended consequences which turn out to be nearly as bad as the problem we were trying to fix in the first place. In large part, these breakdowns in our processes are due to the fact that most of our current tools look at business or program management as a relatively linear process where A leads to B and then on to C, albeit with some phase gates in between. The reality of today's business and innovation programs is that they are relatively complex systems where the information flows through a web structure, not a relatively linear pipeline. The failure to recognize and manage this reality is the precursor of poor performance, because in the end, reality almost always wins. Our current tools typically manage only about 60% of the information flows that occur in our programs. As bad as this sounds, it's actually the good news, because the bad news is that 40-odd% that we are currently missing is where the large percentage of surprises and risks that we run into daily reside. What is needed is a tool which provides a much more complete view of our programs, what the military calls situational visibility on a battlefield. Back in the 1960s, Don Stewart and others started working on developing DSM to provide the situational visibility, control and adaptiveness that is required to manage complex, fast-moving programs. Over the last 20 years, the DSM process has been further developed by some of the world's great universities and corporations. Initially, DSM was applied only in large corporations, primarily in the automotive and aerospace sectors. 20 years ago, the software required to make using the DSM method practical was proprietary for the most part, or it was cheap and cumbersome. Not anything hard-pressed teams were prepared to work with. Today, many vendors have really good and relatively inexpensive software for implementing DSM, all the way from large corporations down to the SMEs. Given industry's obvious need for a much more capable tool, and their becoming available, the global DSM community saw the need to form a non-profit group in 2011 to facilitate the introduction of DSM to industry worldwide. The webinar we are introducing you to in this presentation was designed by this group to get you started on your DSM journey. We all understand and have been living with the limitations of our present management tools and processes. So now let's move on and take a look at how we can break through these performance barriers. One of the key requirements for breakthrough performance is having good objective clarity. An organization or team has good objective clarity when each of its members can clearly discuss the issues below with high levels of both accuracy and alignment. Here's where we are, here's where we're going, here's how we're going to get there, and here's my role and contribution in making it happen. Objective clarity is relatively easy to measure and is the best leading indicator of success. The starting place for good objective clarity is a well-constructed and accurate set of requirements or jobs to be done, which everyone involved in the program has internalized. Requirements generation will not be covered in the upcoming webinar as it has been extensively covered elsewhere. The next key component of objective clarity is everyone in the enterprise understanding just how the objective will be met. To do this, a plan for delivery of the objective must be developed, which all stakeholders are committed to because they authored it and believe the objective can be achieved within the budget and time constraints set. Teams really engage and work plans that they have authored and owned. Building a design and development plan cross-functionally sounds like a real exercise in herding cats, but with the right tools it is at least as easy as what you're doing now and a whole lot more real. During the process of using DSM to build the program's delivery plan, the team does a great deal of work on understanding the connectedness between all the issues and elements that form the fabric of their program. As a byproduct of building these connections between the program's issues and elements, the team develops a great deal of individual and collective insight and wisdom. Knowledge, insight and wisdom are key components of objective clarity. Having individual insight and wisdom enables real delegation and self-directed contribution to occur. Without this insight and wisdom being in place, the project manager is forced to operate in a supervisory role rather than being the program's leader and facilitator. Real delegation results in a program which runs faster and delivers more value because it can think on its feet, rather than the development and delivery process having a continual series of mini delays while it waits to get input from the one person that may or may not have real insight into just what happened and know how to fix it. Besides leveraging their operating capabilities, teams using DSM to formally develop objective clarity do a great deal of early learning about what the needs of the development program will be throughout its life cycle. Generally, this knowledge is built up as the team or organization progresses serially through a program, so that at the end of the program, the team knows what it wished it had known at the beginning. Being a learning laggard is a real problem. To quote Ari de Gauss, the ability to learn faster than your competitors may be the only sustainable competitive advantage. When using DSM, the learning occurs very early in the program, allowing you to preemptively act on a smaller and more visible set of issues that remain post the optimization phase. This allows you to avoid many of the late-in-program crises that are the drivers of your cost and delivery overruns. The advantages of high objective clarity that we have just reviewed can be seen in the following diagrams from an early case study. In the diagram you have on your screen, you can see the average objective clarity for the two teams. These teams had very similar levels of experience and were working on programs of about the same complexity. Antelope, with an objective clarity of 89%, used a formal process for developing its clarity. Hare, with its 24% level of objective clarity, did not. In this diagram, we are comparing the outcomes for two projects using a cross-functional metric where the function's performance is in the numerator and its dysfunctional performance, or the damage that it causes downstream organizations, is in the numerator. As can be seen, Antelope's high objective clarity was a good leading indicator of its superior performance at the enterprise level. By the way, TTM is time to manufacturing, and ECNs are the number of engineering change notices that occurred in the first 6 months of manufacturing.